And our version of Jesus Christ, I'm sorry to say, has been lost. So I wrote a book in 1998. And Natasha, I was so glad to see you at the launch of this book. And
I wouldn't have missed it for the world. You were one of the first Nottingham authors that I became aware of, and I was so inspired by you writing a book. I just had to attend, and it was a very busy event. There was MPs there, and the Sheriff of Nottingham was there, and there was the principal of the college, and a lot of people were very inspired by your writings, because I think that at the time there wasn't that much coming out, especially from the East Midlands, let alone the UK in general. And I think that your book has inspired a number of other black authors within Nottingham City to write, and I'm glad you've continued to write different themes of books as well that have come out about communities, and also about crime, youths, mentality of youths, and just in general.
Natasha Johnson is Executive Director of a well-known organisation, current organisation in the Meadows area of Nottingham. It is to do with youth and community issues. And the name of this organisation is Go Digit All. Welcome to this house, Natasha.
Thank you, Pitman. But today it's about you, Pitman, and you also need to acknowledge that you are also a director of Go Digital, and I'm really pleased that you've joined such a brilliant initiative to add your views and input into the organisation. I'm really pleased to be here, Pitman, and I'd like to hear more about the work that you've done. I'd also like to hear about the speech you recently made in the city centre about non-violence.
Yes, it was the bicentenary of the passing of the Slave Trade Act nearly 200 years ago, and I feel, or rather I felt at the time, that some kind of response had to be initiated from me, particularly so from the point of view as a writer. See, in all of these things, reporting and journalism is important, because the story, the front line tends to, I don't know, Eurocentric, the material to do with Wilberforce, completely negate the work of the Maroons and the Ashanti warriors. And time has now come for us to redress that sort of imbalance. So what I was simply trying to say, that the planters had all the guns, they could blast and bludgeon to smithereens, to kingdom come bamboo ashes at the end of the day. And all we had, in so many words, was our brains, thank goodness. And up till this day, that redress, that imbalance, I think we need to do something about it, so that our writers and publishers and historians can benefit, because they don't know what happened. But if our writers became more Afrocentrically aware, then yes, we'll begin to crack the kernel.
You mean the people, the Western people, who often dominate the press, often don't publicise the importance and cultural aspect that the Maroons and others had. It's so interesting to hear you speak, Pitman, because you've got a wealth of knowledge. Obviously you've got more knowledge than myself, and when you speak it's just like I'm on a learning curve, a big huge learning curve. Tell me more about it, Pitman.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm drawing upon the fact that a lot of, you'd call them this second generation Britishers amongst the African Caribbean population were born here, and I think you're one of them. I was born in Jamaica, but you see, even there we had a short, in terms of circulation of information, viable information. All we had was West Indian histories, the bad old days of slavery. They taught us that slaves, well, by the way, we're not slaves, we're kidnapped ones, were passive, subservient. They're supposed to be obedient. Obedient to what? So we, the second generation, including you and others who were born in this country long, long after, it is rendered incumbent upon us to get up and fight back against the assumptions that this system is telling us that William Wilberforce, he did not do anything. He made speeches in Parliament. At the end of the day, he was reported. So, of course, after the Sam Sharp revolution, burning down 16 factories in one night, he decided that every one of those planters, he took side at all of the must be compensated, and there were 20 million pounds.
Wow.
200 years ago. So we need to question, was William Wilberforce a liberator at all under these conditions? No. I am here as an author to say, authors, West Indian, Caribbean, African authors, please help us to redress the imbalances of history.
You often hear this from an African-American perspective, but very rarely from a British perspective. And I think it's very noble and brave of you, Pitman, to have such an outspoken manner about this subject. And I just wish that this could filter down to our generation so that we could verbalise in the same passionate way that you do. There is the ability for our leaders or spokespersons and sportspersons to be able to take this in hand and teach our generation. How do you think we're going to be able to achieve that?
Yeah, it is achievable if we choose carefully what comes out of, as you've rightly said, the pop culture, because Bob Marley, yes, we must concede to what appropriately must now be termed the renewing, or we must emancipate our minds from mental slavery. What we don't want is Shabba Ranks coming in, Mr. Beanie Man, Mr. Ninja Man. They have messages too, but under these circumstances they are not frontline. Some of these messages can be questioned insofar as the culture of our young minds are concerned. Some of them are lost. So that needs to be addressed too. But yes, where do we go from here? This is what you appear to be asking. Educationally, we are not, so African Caribbean sectors within the population, Eurocentrically bound. We are not going in that direction anymore. And it is up to us not to play penance to the terms of multiculturalism and multiracism, and we need to be anti-racist if we're going to discover lost information and bring such lost information to the surface. The information looking on the walls, for instance, that we have had 3 popes in recent time coming from out of the bowels of the African experience. The most important is Pope Miltiades. We have Pope Gelasius and Pope Victor, but Miltiades ensured that the Roman Empire abandoned and abrogated all to do with the destruction of innocent lives. People were being thrown to the lions. Every one of that piece of injustice was stopped under the rule of Pope Miltiades. Now, this is not mentioned in our history books. The Church does not give credence to it, but we are giving credence to it now. For instance, St. Augustine is an African priest, not a European priest with European phenotypical features that were plastered all over our literature, but all of these are people of the so-called third world. They are not. We are the first world.